Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. If you're somebody that is in a leadership role, maybe you're a CEO, maybe you're a C-suite executive, maybe you own a company, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about how you lead the people on your team, the people that support you, the people that truly help you make it happen. Do you foster their growth? Do you recognize their strengths? Do you give them feedback? Are you diplomatic? A lot of things here. How do you measure performance? How does somebody measure your performance? We're going to talk about that today, and that is with somebody who helps leaders move their lives forward in many, many different ways, whether it's personally or professionally. His company is called Saterman Connect. He is Josh Saterman. He's with us today. Great to have you here, Josh. How's it going?
Great to be here, Steve. Nice to be on the show.
What do you hear from people that you work with, people who are in a leadership role? What are they telling you nowadays?
I hear a lot of things. Great question. I think right now we're in a period of extreme change. It suffices to say that we have to have truth talk and just bring all that to the conversation that we have. And part of that is that leaders are managing through A, B, and C changes as D, E, and F changes are occurring. And so they're trying to manage information, they're trying to manage engagement, they're trying to manage results, they're trying to manage through a lot of different types of what we'll call performance. And so that's where I would actually start is change leadership.
How do you define leadership versus management? A leader and a manager.
Second question, great question. We affectionately say, so at Saterman Connect, we wrote a book called Arrive, Drive, Thrive. Actually, it's right here. Little Arrive, Drive, Thrive action.
Love the title. Love the title.
Yeah. And essentially, when I was sitting in my former corporate job, prior to this corporate job, what I realized is that there were so many different types of leaders that could emerge at all levels of an organization. So affectionately, what we say is, if you have a job at a company, you're a leader. You have a voice, you have experience, you have knowledge. And so how do you share that more deeply? Our workforce should become a reflection of how our company's mission is manifested in the marketplace. Now, that being said, most people think of leaders as a title, a hierarchy. And so leadership is not reserved for the few at the top. Leadership really should be starting at the emerging leader journey. And that's why Arrive is all about emerging leaders, and Drive is about advancing leaders, and Thrive is about the full organization and the senior leadership's role within that. Managing is a people leader function. When you manage somebody, you have a hierarchy structure, not for power, but for decision making. It allows organizations to move with speed, accomplish KPIs, objectives, goals a bit more quickly, because alignment, collaboration, and communication, when it's a high performing team, function best. So leadership is about voice. Management is about decision making.
I'm glad you arrived, because you make this very clear. And you're very concise. And what you just said before rings so true. Like the leaders, that title, seems like it's reserved for just a few at the top, Right. And then we put them in that little, in our minds, in that corner, or maybe it's the corner office. Been there, done that. Not me personally. Worked for companies where they were in the corner. Why do they always put them in the corner office? Why is that? Is there an answer?
Them, I have to say, them includes me. I've had very large offices and very big corners with very lovely views. But it doesn't mean I had all the answers, and it doesn't mean I couldn't function much more effectively with the team. And I learned that very young in my journey is young is not age, young is experience. So you could be 50, 60 years old, and you are in growth mindset, and you can evolve your leadership journey. And that's the point of Arrive, Drive, Thrive, is let's remember that we have a very special obligation as leaders to lift others up and make sure we get their experience, because that allows organizations to thrive.
It doesn't matter when you arrive. That's what I'm
right.
getting from you. Yeah, in terms of age and experience, because sometimes it takes time to garner that experience. How does a leader better connect with his team? How does he and you've been there, I'm sure you've seen different types of leadership skills, and some leaders, you just feel like, man, they're just real. I love working with that person. Or there's others where it's like when they call you into the corner office, you're like, all right, let's see how this is going to go. Even though they'll say open door policy, but you don't feel that way. How does somebody better connect with their team?
Lots of tricks for this, and they're not tricks because you're tricking somebody, but think of it a bit more like an experience versus a transaction. While our teams are not our family, we often spend more time with our teams than we do our family. So first and foremost is trust is an outcome, not an input. And so trust is over the course of time, building relationship, having truth talk, understanding that somebody might disagree with you, and that doesn't mean they're wrong. It means they have a different lens or perspective. So the first thing that leaders can do is take a healthy dose of humility. Take a deep breath. You got here because of your experience. You had people along the way, regardless of the privilege, you've had people along the way that have allowed you to grow and thrive. Now, how do you pay that forward and listen more than speak? The second thing to consider if you're an emerging leader, if you're arriving and you're emerging, is what do you want to learn? One of the things that we do at Saterman Connect is we are obsessed about individual growth plans. And part of the reason for that is just like you have a goal for healthy eating or workout habits, how do you share your growth plan with your organization, with your leader? Because that also fosters relationship building. So I believe that to connect leaders better, we should start with how do you want to define the relationship and set clear job expectations so you move towards alignment. That's what this is about.
You said the T word before, and that just continues to ring truer and truer for me, trust. If there's not trust there in somebody who's in a leadership role, it seems it's just not going to work. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, trust is, it's Lencioni, Patrick Lencioni, who's one of the greats in the industry, talks a lot about the 5 dysfunctions of a leadership team. And to give him a lot of nod, I get the provocative book title. But I have on occasion taken the liberty of saying, well, let's talk about it as the 5 functions of a leadership team. And what I mean by that is how do we dream in the positive of when do we build trust? How do we build trust? What does trust look like? But it is the base of that pyramid, is if you don't have the foundation of trust, you can't manage through conflict. You can't create tighter accountability. You can't truly commit and drive your first team or organization forward. And ultimately what suffers is your results.
As we talk about this, I see 3 individuals in a company that I worked for. Funny how things turn. Now they work for me in terms of they're a vendor. And it's great. It's all great. But back in the day, one leader, everybody always said, it wasn't me. Everybody always said the same thing, that it was uncomfortable going into his office. And I don't believe the trust was there. And he revealed that later in his tenure, that he really couldn't be trusted, even though he came on very strong. And there were examples of that. I'm just, this is what I'm repeating facts of what I saw and what other people said. Then the person that replaced him felt a little bit more connected, a little more trustworthy, but also these 2 individuals always looked like they were out for themselves, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then the person in that role now seems so approachable, not just likable, but cares. Like he wants to know what you're thinking. He's genuinely curious. Like, really, how does that work? Never even heard of that. He's able to admit that, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Tell me more about that. And it seems like now they've got the perfect person in that role. He's the one that will say, you know what, let's go grab a beer and talk about that. That's a great idea. But you feel it's genuine. Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm seeing these 3 people and different, maybe it's just different styles, but the person that's in that role now just seems like he's approachable, professional, trustworthy, in a growth mindset, but it's all of us growing together as opposed to, one person growing on their own and having others around them. Have you ever been in those situations where you see the different types of leaders?
Oh my gosh, yes. First of all, Steve, the question is so broad. It's brilliant. So forgive me for taking a moment to kind of go through it step by step.
I
We
get
could do a
it.
whole podcast on this. We could do
I
the
get it.
whole shows on this.
Yeah.
Um, First, I have to just say that leadership style and leadership philosophy and leadership models evolve over time. I say to coaching clients, CEOs, CFOs, you get into this middle school 3 years, high school 4 years, college 4 years, master's program 1, 2, or 3 years. Even if you're a medical professional, medical school, there's a finite start and stop. Now, to your career, there's also a finite start and stop. Relatively speaking, it's much longer.
Mm.
So when we first start off in our leadership journey, we often don't think about cadence, pace. What do we want to learn? And oftentimes, what leaders go into is thinking they have to have all the answers. So when we talk about authentic leadership or authentic oneself, you hear in the marketplace, you hear bring your full self to work, which does not give people permission to be an asshole. But what it does give people permission to do is talk about that they have kids, or talk about today happens to be a big day. It might be someone's birthday. It might be an elderly parent is sick. It might be that there's a soccer tournament. Maybe you're not a working parent, but maybe you have a really important date because one day you want to be a working parent. So
Mm.
I think truth talk about how we are is sometimes lost in the workplace, not because of activism. I'm not into politics. We're not going to make this about politics. We're about people, but the full self comes to work. And at the end of the day, the other side to it is then how do we become advocates for what's important to us? I think the mission statement of a company drives a big piece of that. I think companies do a bad job of really understanding the power of their mission and values. And the mission being the purpose statement and the values being the behaviors ground how leaders should think, act, and operate. And you asked before, what's some of the things I'm seeing in the marketplace? And what I'm seeing is shitty leaders who put technical skills and ultimately the business results above the actual long-term vision of the company. And what do the critical skills, like Simon Sinek talks about, and how do those behaviors lead to sustainable long-term growth? I had a CEO a few weeks ago who said to me after a 3-day offsite, he said, I wish I brought you in 3 years earlier. Even though you worked with us, you've been trying to convince me to do this for 3 years. And when our business was healthy, I was tolerating in my leadership team bad behavior. And now that my business is not healthy, now that bad behavior is even worse. It's even more pervasive. It's
Mm.
causing poison throughout the organization, and we don't have the results to back it up.
Yeah.
So part of trust and part of authentic leadership, and I know I'm spending a fair amount of time sharing this, this is deep, it's multi-layer. There are concentric circles that touch that require us to think of it like a business strategy through the pieces and the parts that actually matter. So that when we show up in our leadership style and we show up in our models, what we're actually doing is we're representing the company in addition to representing ourselves.
As you're speaking, I'm seeing this so clear, especially in that example you gave, where when things are okay, we kind of look the other way. We know they're not the way they should be, but we look the other way. I'm going to deal with it now. But when things are not healthy and there's a big hole in the boat and money's flying through it, then you realize we got to do something before the boat sinks. But I'm sure people are aware of that. In that situation, we talk about the performance and how to determine the performance. How do you do that within a leader? How do you manage the performance? How do you even know that a leader is performing well, or does it always come back to the bottom line?
Well, it depends on the leader. I mean, our mission statement is to amplify people's potential and ultimately impact business results. We see people in business as symbiotic relationships.
Sure.
Your performance metrics should match your mission and match where you're headed from a goal and objective perspective, both in your annual strategic plan and your 1, 2, or 3-year vision plan. So first and foremost is performance management is about clear expectations. That's the first thing I say to organizations. When Saterman Connect goes into an organization and we do any type of work in the HR space around talent development, culture and engagement, and inclusive leadership, what we talk about is setting clear expectations and communicating clearly. And I think part of that is, again, remember in the leadership journey, whether you sit at the manager, director, vice president, senior vice president, chief, board member, what are the expectations you have of your role, of your job, of how you show up each and every day in the workplace? So I think it starts with clear expectations. I think the other side to it is being vocal about realistic expectations. And for any of you sitting in a PE-backed or shareholder-backed public organization or private organization, and we know that there are some healthy and some unhealthy dynamics happening in that space. That's your assessment of whether or not this is the right job, the right company, the right place for you, based on what that looks like. And that's probably a little provocative. Some people don't like when I say that, but it's not any different than dating. You don't date every person and love and marry every person. Sometimes companies evolve. And so I often say, how does your personal value, how does your personal mission tie to the organization's mission? And if your number one objective is money, and your number one objective is to make a lot of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's not judge ourselves. Let's just acknowledge where our motivating factors sink in and how that ties to performance management and metrics. If you're okay being in an environment where assholes are prevalent, go for it. Do it. Don't shy away from that. That doesn't make you an asshole. It just makes you clear on what you want out of your job. And so how do we be truth talk about this and just acknowledge where we are in the work center and go from there? So that's how I would start to answer it. So it's a deep question, but that's how I'd start to answer.
But the clarity comes through, especially in that many organizations don't define that. I'll bet you if you go into 100 companies right now and you're able to talk to their staff, very small percentage would be able to say, yeah, I know what we're all about. Our mission here is to, and even if it's only a couple of 5 words, whatever it is, I bet you most don't even know what the company is all about. And if the company's all about making as much money as we can, all right, that's fine. Like you said, no problemo, as long as it's clear. But
yeah,
if that company's goal is to make money while we support our community, blah, 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 then okay, but that needs to be clear. And I believe a lot of times it's just not clear. Why? I don't know. I want to talk about your background. How did you get here helping leaders really craft what they do?
One is I've had the fortune, it's really privilege, of having tremendous mentors along my path very early on. Becky Dannenfelser was a woman that hired me. She worked at Macy's. She was such a brilliant energy. I always honor her because unfortunately she did pass away several years ago of breast cancer. But we were close. And throughout the journey, whether she was at Macy's or not, she was coaching me always. Every Monday at 11 a.m. This was someone that was, 6, 7 levels higher than me, but believed in me. Every Monday for a good period of 3, 4 months at 11 a.m., she had me come to her office and give her the 5 to 10 minute update on the business from the week before. And she would give me one thing to work on before next week. She was intentional about her sponsorship, not just being a mentor, but how she sponsored my growth and development. As a 22, 23-year-old, that's pretty incredible. So very early on, I was introduced to coaching. Then, and as many of you will see in my LinkedIn, I have a lot of experience with Macy's Inc. and lots of different operating models and lots of different functions. But, what I learned in my experience is that people really do matter. And so very early on, people mattered. And so as much as I loved fashion, and I do still love fashion and my bright orange cashmere sweater, first. People, product, place, but people came first. And so over the course of my journey, I just tried to keep getting better at it. And I'm still learning. I teach this stuff and I'm still learning. And I see that all the time. We don't get every objective right. I don't always communicate as clearly as I should. I don't always set clear enough expectations. So while I'm teaching it and I'm coaching it and we're educating around these different platforms that will serve organizations well, we're also still learning. And I think that humility is important. So I could talk about this for hours, but essentially that's what got me started. And then across my journey, I've had people that have just reminded me of what great leadership looks like. So little pieces and parts from every person I've come across has sort of carried with me in my journey.
Josh, it seems in the beginning, when you were 22, 23, she saw something in you and she appreciated your freshness. That's what I detect. The fresh perspective when she got her weekly updates from you. You think that's true?
I do. I mean, again, with humility, I say this. I love breaking molds. I'm not one for structure. I do like understanding clear expectations. So there's a certain amount of structure for me, but I don't believe that because we did it 5 years ago, we should do it 5 years from now. I think we should always be challenging the system to understand how we get better every day. I'm not afraid of change. Change scares me, but I'm not afraid to embrace it. Ryan Holiday wrote the book, The Obstacle is the Way. I love that. It's absolutely the way. And so, yeah, I do think she saw something in me. I think others have also, Molly Langenstein. There's a lot of other folks in my life, Jill Katz, Mita Malik, Lan Fan. There's a lot of folks in my life that I hope to actually bring some into our show, Steve, and really
Sure.
let them also speak to that journey of connection. Because again, go back to trust, right? Part of this is truth talk, that if I do something good, they tell me. If I do something bad, they tell me. And that helps your leadership style, leadership philosophy, leadership model continue to evolve.
You talk about change. Are you a different person than you were 5 years ago?
100%. I'm a different person than I was a year ago.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like exponential growth, life keeps changing and keeps challenging us to change with it. It's how we started today's conversation, is change leadership, change management. And I would like to say even from a year ago, I'd like to think I've learned from those journeys and applied it to the way that I lead going forward.
We are so programmed for instant gratification. You know, the Amazon world, one button, 3 p.m., it's here.
Yeah.
That we don't see the incremental growth. If you look back 6 months, you're like, wow, you know what? I did that. I pulled that one off. Wow, I did that as well. That's pretty cool. Look what I learned along the way. Now go back a year. So I don't believe we see that. We just want to move it forward. Within your company, you do a lot of different events throughout the year, right? Can you tell us about that?
We do. So we're constantly working with different organizations on leadership charters and offsites. We're doing a lot of coaching. We also run our Arrive Academy. And so check out our website. You'll see us doing showcases, Arrive Academies, soon to be Drive Academies, soon to be e-learnings. Lots of different things will be populating the website, which we refer to as our marketplace. And you can check it all out at satermanconnect.com.
Love your website, by the way, right down to the merch.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a lot going on there, a lot of insight. And this is just the beginning of what you offer. We just literally scraped the surface today. Best way to connect with you, go to the website, start a conversation. Is it I call it a free discovery call so we can see if it's a right fit?
It's 100% a free discovery call. You can go to hello@satermanconnect.com because we're all about connection. So say hello. You can actually go in and fill an inquiry and we will receive that. Our sales team will see that. You can just drop us a little note in Instagram, slide into those DMs or slide into message and get us on LinkedIn. So between LinkedIn, Saterman Connect, Instagram, Saterman Connect, satermanconnect.com, reach out. We'd love to connect. We'd love to be in this journey together.
Great talking with you today. Learned a lot. It also validated some things that I wondered about. And most importantly, orange is an awesome color.
Thank you.
I intentionally painted that wall right in back of me orange. And there's other walls in this office studio that are orange as well. It's just, I don't know. It's got vibrance. It's got creativity. It feels like it's always evolving as well. So.
Well, during our next time, we'll talk about the colors of purple and orange because those are our colors. But purple is spirit and orange is community. And so looking forward to our community checking out this podcast.
Same here. And I'm looking forward to the next time you arrive and we let you dive.
Sounds great.
So we can thrive. All right.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, Help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.